All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming to our session tonight. I'm very excited to talk to you tonight and share these three young men with me that are with me tonight with everybody here. This is What Boys Need as Males Conference, a global conversation on raising boys into men in the 21st century. Um, our section here, what we're going to be covering is this idea that what boys need from coaches, a global conversation for Helping Boys Thrive Summit. And my name is Rob Kodama. I'm a Gurry Master Trainer, coach, educator, mentor to many over the years. And so I'm really proud to be able to introduce everybody to you today. I spent 30 years coaching, teaching at Crespi Carmel High School. I started with the Gurren Institute back in 2007. So I've been working with the Gurren Institute and Michael since 2007. I co-created and have adapted a course over the years called Becoming a Man. That's a senior level course for young men at Crespi High School that we would teach to seniors. I've been coaching since 1991. I've been involved in youth sports and developing youth athletes and leaders for as long as I could remember. My journey with boys and coaching, I began in 1991 running soccer camps and coaching club and being involved coaching. I started later on, moved to Crespi several years later in 1995. And at Crespi, I taught, I coached, I did admissions for the last 20 years I was there. Again, men's studies course. But over the last 3 decades, I've been really mindful over supporting boys' development, and I think that this is an important element. So today we are going to be talking about some stories with Jeff, Eli, and Ethan, and what they needed as boys, how coaches have influenced their resilience, and how they can help you, brotherhood, and the sense of belonging that they got through playing sports, and how boys become better young men. So the first panel is Jeff Okerman. I was very fortunate to meet Jeff as a freshman when I first arrived at Crespi. Jeff was without a doubt one of the toughest, one of the best players I think I've ever coached in all the years that I've had the opportunity to coach kids. But in his junior year, we were primed for a great year, and the first day of practice, he tore his ACL the very first day. It was devastating for our team. We went from being an all CIF contender to a team that was just pretty good. We waited, we pushed, we waited, and he got back, fought his way back from that first ACL injury. And the first game of our summer league play, I'll never forget, Jeff went up for a header, landed on his legs, turned and looked at me, started walking off the field. I said, "You okay?" And he went, "No, I think I just did my other knee." And for me, it was completely devastating as a coach to see a young man go through this, especially of this magnitude of just the type of young man he was at that time. Today, Jeff is a physical therapist, a husband, father, but he fought his all the way back to play Division I soccer at Cal State Northridge and impacted a team that actually won the conference. And so he is absolutely a favorite story of mine. And another panelist for us tonight is Eli Zamora. He nearly quit his sophomore year playing soccer, and it was a tough deal for sure. But at the time, I did not want to see Eli leave soccer at that point, and so it was really important that we did everything we could to keep him in the program. Later on, it was an incredible. He's an incredible story because he became our program leader, center back, all-world player for us. Went on to play at Cal State Monterey Bay, was a 2-year college captain there, and recently, last year, actually signed a professional contract with the San Diego Sockers of the Major Indoor Soccer League. So that was a pretty cool thing. Both Jeff and I had the opportunity to go actually see Eli down in San Diego. It's pretty cool stuff. He's also a senior VP in advertising and marketing, so I'm really excited about his career and where he's gone to in the world. Ethan Kodama, yes, he is my son, but he was part of that COVID situation. So when he was a freshman in high school, COVID actually hit during the spring of his freshman year and had to kind of deal with that all the way through most of his sophomore year, which was a challenge. He also went to Crespi High School. All three young men went to Crespi. He actually suffered a UCL tear just before his senior season, which was a tough deal for him for sure, which meant that he had to take a medical red shirt at Cal his freshman year. And so he really represents a generation shaped by uncertainty and a group of young men that has had to really fight through and struggle to get to a separate place in the world today. So a couple things to keep in mind as we go through this, why our coaches matter, right? Often second or third parents, right? They're really connected to all of us. I think a lot of times in sports, they help supply structure and discipline that us as parents can't always do. I think that coaches also have this ability to emotionally help kids translate how to deal with that emotion, wins, losses, struggles, and things of that nature. I think sports in of itself and coaches also help with confidence and building character for a lot of ways. I'm a real big believer in this challenge and challenging young men and challenging any athlete, but in this case, young men, but also giving them enough support so that way resilience becomes the outcome. It's really an important element to know that sometimes when things are very difficult, it's actually sometimes the best part of the journey. So in my Becoming a Man class, and one of the things that we talked about is the three stages of becoming men. One is this idea of separation, this separation where you're kind of on your own. You have to figure it out without moms or dads, without, people that are going to tell you what to do. And so you have to be on your own. The second part of it is an initiation of some sort or some kind for us as young men. And sometimes that could be something that's painful, something that's really hard. I would argue that it has to be hard. It has to be difficult and almost painful in many cases. And that will allow for it to leave a deep enough mark on us so that it matters and it gives us that meaning. But the most important part is this idea of reincorporation, coming back into a world where we're welcome back in a manner that becomes really important, that we're an equal now, that we have come back somehow changed after this. So for many of these guys, with their journeys of struggle and difficulties allowed them to come back to a situation where they were able to grow in ways that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So we're going to start with some of the hard stuff, whether it's an injury, burnout, COVID disruptions, maybe some kind of identity loss because we're not playing or we stopped playing, whatever it might be. I think that this is going to be a really important part of where we start this conversation. So I think that when we talk about this idea of emotional needs, right, as we go through, keep in mind that, we all want to feel seen. We all want to have someone believe in us, right? We need clear communication to us, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that kind of thing, I think is really important for all of us. But we also need the room to fail, and the abilities to fail and get back up, I think, is a really important part of it. And also, one of the things that's really important in this day and age, especially, and I think it's always been true, but there was a window of time, I really believe, that people thought that, you could humiliate kids and it was okay, but it never really was, actually, because I don't think anything really good comes from it. So I think that being able to provide the correct corrections and the right details to help those young men is going to be the key for us as we move forward. All right. So Jeff, we'll start with Jeff. What went through your mind after each of the ACL tears for you?
Yeah, good question. I think I kind of was thinking about that question and I kind of jotted a few ideas down, and I think initially like I was upset. There was anger, how did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? There was fear, a lot of uncertainty. How is that, first ACL tear? How's that going to affect my soccer career? Playing at high school, playing through club. And then I felt like, after you've processed those initial feelings, I felt like it went to a place of, well, what do I have to do? How can I fix this? Right? Like, what's the steps? And I felt like then it was like, okay, well, surgery. And then after surgery, you're gonna have to do some level of physical therapy. Um, and I remember, after my parents drove me to the doctor that was associated with Crespi High School at the time. And I remember we went in, we were sitting in the waiting room. He confirmed my MRI. Yes, Jeff, you got a torn ACL, torn meniscus. We're going to do surgery. It's going to be a 6 to 9 month rehab. And I remember taking the information in. We, said thank you to the doctor. We left, we got in the car, and I lost it emotionally, broke down, crying. And I was telling my parents, I can't do this. I need to find something else because I need to get back to playing soccer. My goal is to play Division I college soccer, and that was my focus. And then eventually through friends, we found another doctor, Dr. Mandelbaum in Santa Monica, and he sat me down in his office, put in the VHS cassette at the time, and it showed all the professional soccer players that he had done surgery with that had tore ACLs: Roy Lassiter, Marcel Balboa, et cetera, all these top level collegiate and professional soccer players. And he goes, Jeff, I can Yep, you got a torn ACL. We'll do surgery. You'll be back playing at 4 months post-op if you do everything the right way. If I do the right surgery, and I mean, I was sold there. So I felt like I kind of went through all the emotions, all the processing of
Right.
it.
And then what about what kept you from quitting after the second one? I mean, that was just I mean, I know you, yeah, I can't even imagine. I know how hard it was to come back the first time, but especially just after you coming back almost like
Yeah, I
immediately.
mean, after I rehabbed for back pain, and I'm sorry, what was that, Rob?
So for this, I mean, what kept you from quitting after the second injury? I mean, that was just
Yeah,
devastating.
I was in complete disbelief after that second ACL tear, and I felt like for me, it was my goal to play Division I soccer. That was kind of my intrinsic factors. That's the goal that I wanted to achieve, and after already going through the first one, I kind of knew how to get there. Um,
Right.
and then I just had to rely on my support system. So I think that was my parents. I had really supportive parents who were there for me. I had you as my coach, and I felt like during that whole process, you were there. You supported me. You kept me involved with the team. You kept me accountable. And that was huge. And then you know what? I had my teammates, my good friends on the team that were always there for me, talking to me, supporting me. And then I think also then you've got your medical staff, the physical therapists and the doctors who obviously are doing their job. And I feel like that whole community kind of really helped me going and helped me kind of get back to where I wanted to be.
Right. Awesome. I do remember you moving the bike out on the sideline and riding that stationary bike every day at practice. So that was a
Yep.
pretty cool
Yep.
memory. So, all righty. So Eli, what led to your burnout and desire to quit initially?
Uh, it's a good question. I think that growing up, you kind of find your hobbies or the things that you really enjoy doing, and someone like me and the parents that I have, they taught me to kind of go 2 feet in with all the things that you do, and I've always kind of been a late bloomer to some degree in many facets of my life, and putting in the hours that I would put in as from ages 6 on, just playing at nighttime, playing until it gets dark, juggling whatever I have to do to get better, and experiencing multiple years of not seeing the outcome from how people are perceiving me as a player, from coaches that I've had or players that I played with. It really took a toll on my confidence level, and so I think in those moments you're thinking about all the years that you put into to try and become the best that you can, and you're not seeing the output from it or the outcome that you expect, and it just became really hard, and it wasn't really a desire to quit everything. It was a desire to try something different that I could feel confident in doing and feel like myself again, because I definitely lost that side of me. When you're not really getting the outcomes that you think that you deserve or that you expect you should be getting.
Right. Right. So what got you to come back? What was, I know we had a conversation. I remember it
Yeah.
like it was yesterday because we knew as a coaching staff how good you were. You just happened to be kind of little at the time, I think, was part of it too.
hmm
But what was that? Because, that I think that's an important story for sure.
I mean, to be honest, I think that like the leaving the game for a moment in time allowed me to get some perspective on what was really important to me.
Mhm.
I think my parents, you as my coach at Crespi, and teammates, that everyone played a role in getting me back into playing.
Mhm.
I think that with a combination of soccer has kind of always been a part of my identity, and I think that you probably knew more than I did that I was going to come back, and I think it was allowing me that space to kind of like experience that emotion and what that actually feels like. Because I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure it's a risk, right? To let someone go that you think should be playing and hope that they come back. And I think that kind of kick-started, well, I have something to prove to myself. And,
Mhm.
I think that's kind of what I think jump started it back for me.
Right. To be honest with you, there were a lot of factors, but I think we had a lot of help. And to be honest, it wasn't just me who was trying to, make you not make, but get you to come back. It really was a group of us. Even we had a vice principal at our school that had originally told me, "Hey, he's going to play water polo." I'm like, "Whoa, no, no, no!" And he says, "Yeah, no, 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 he's got to play soccer. He's a much better soccer player than a water polo player for sure." And I know that really kind of helped change a lot of that because I knew that we had more people in that realm to kind of get you back. Just because we knew that this was going to be part of what we felt like was going to give you even more value to yourself at some point. Um,
Yeah.
I know at a certain point, following Crespi and everything else and moving on, that you actually coached as well. At Heidelberg University, and I know you had some really good success there. But were there coaching moments that really changed your trajectory? Because, I know you came back to coach with us, but what were the maybe those moments that really kind of got you to that place? I mean, here you are, a professional now.
You know, I think it kind of goes back to one of the points that you're mentioning around the becoming a man class, where, yeah, I think you do need that separation a bit, and you need that moment or those moments for as a coach to allow someone to fall
Mhm.
and but fall in a space where they still feel protected. And I think that was probably the biggest moment that kind of changed my trajectory, and knowing that, like, whether I wanted to do something or not, I had the support of the people that I respected around me, and
Mhm.
um, but not letting me go fully. And I think that having those moments to experience, the feelings that I felt, or whatever it was on my own, and to be able to look back and have some perspective on what that actually means for me. I think those are the kind of moments that I see as a player looking back on what coaches did for me.
Right, right. Awesome. Okay, Ethan, how did COVID isolation affect your identity as an athlete? And what were you feeling in that one?
I think kind of when it first happened, I remember we were playing Harvard Westlake, and we got in the car, and kind of everything was on the news saying that we weren't going to be able to play for a little bit, and so obviously I was kind of upset. I wouldn't get to have my freshman season that I wanted to have, that I kind of worked pretty hard for, but after kind of taking some time, for me personally, I was like, man, this could be an opportunity for me to dig in and just get so much better than everybody else. Just be able to work hard. Well, a lot of people kind of took it as like I don't know, like as an extra off season, in my opinion.
Right.
So just being able to just find anywhere I could, to lift. Like, we kind of used to, Coach Gardner, our strength coach at Crest, we kind of used to call them junkyard workouts. We just kind of be in the patio, just like ripping a ton of push-ups, just banding whatever I could get my hands on to try to get bigger, faster, stronger. And then, um, yeah, it kind of made me a little more hungry because I knew that I could get a lot further than most during that time. So my eyes kind of lit up.
Mm, okay. What was your mindset after tearing your UCL? I know that there was a window. It was. I know you were pitching in Las Vegas. I got a call from one of the coaches, and I know Mom was there and so forth. But I had gotten a call from one of the coaches and said, "Yeah, we're a little worried something might have happened because all of a sudden, you were throwing 90s, and all of a sudden it went to the 80s, and they said we don't know what happened." And then, obviously, not too long after that, you found out. So.
Yeah, I think it was definitely difficult just kind of building up to my senior season. Obviously, I had hopes of, getting drafted in high school. And so I feel like I kind of put myself in a position to do so in the fall and just going to all these events and, traveling constantly, just trying to get myself out there. And then finally got to a point where I was starting to get it. And then we went to Las Vegas. Some people were there to see me. So I felt good that day. And then um, just kind of ripped one. It didn't feel great. Just like a knife went through my elbow. And then I kind of got home and I remember how anxious. I remember kind of sitting in your office, just trying to figure out like what happened. And I remember crying a little bit just because I knew how much it meant to me. And I know you were kind of really big for me right there. But after kind of all of that anxiety and all of that, man, like, it might not happen this year. I just kind of took some time to be able to say, you know what, man, like I'm gonna dig in even harder and I'm gonna come back even better. And so I guess that's what I did.
Was there anything that your coaches were able to do for you? I mean, you had a phenomenal senior year. It was great. You guys ended up winning CIF, but was there things that your coaches did for you that really allowed you to continue on this path?
Yeah, I mean, I just definitely think like the encouragement and just, keeping me present and looking towards the future. Like my career is not over, although it felt like that. But still got a bright future ahead of me, and just them being so supportive through the ups and downs, just giving me the grace, to some days be upset and the other days give me some love when I need it the most. And even when I got to college, it was hard for me my freshman year just because, you're a freshman and you want to make an impact right away, but I couldn't really do that on the field, so I didn't really know how else I could kind of make an impact. But
Mhm.
luckily, there's a coach by the name of Noah Jackson who kind of took me under his wing and kind of just rolled with him my whole freshman year, just kind of explaining the game, looking at the game through his lens, and just he allowed me to be part of the team and just like do everything. So he was really big for me just to make me feel involved and yeah, helping me.
Awesome. Great. Great. So here's some of the other hard stuff, right? Let's talk about describe the hardest moment in your journey.
Yeah, I'll hop on that. I'd have to say in my journey, the hardest moment was again, probably like I kind of touched on earlier, was tearing that second ACL,
Mhm.
and I think the thought was, I got to go through this again, right? I'd been through it once. I knew the surgery, I knew the pain that came with it, I knew the rehab that went with it, I knew the hardship, right? All that, and so I think that was the hardest point of when I got the phone call. I think I was camping in Big Sur with a bunch of teammates with Baker and Phil Fitzpatrick, and we were on a camping trip in August. And I remember on a payphone, I called my parents because I knew they were getting the MRI results. And
Mhm.
my dad told me over the phone, like, hey, you tore your ACL again. It's going to be surgery. It's going to be all that same stuff. And I remember just kind of my heart sank, I'm like, I didn't know what to do, whether I cry or whether I get angry. But I think that was probably the hardest part of my journey is when I got the news of the second. But I just kind of had a lot of fear. I'm like, how is this going to affect? I already missed my junior season, right? I'm now coming into my senior season. I know before my first ACL, I was just headed up to state ODP tryouts. I mean, the ball was rolling,
Right.
so I figured, okay, I tore one. I got back from it. We're going to get back to my fall club season and then get right into high school. And
Right.
then bam, I tore my second. And it's like the train derailed, right?
Right.
And I was like, man, am I going to really reach the goals, right, that I want to? So that's
Right.
probably definitely the hardest part of my journey.
Right. Right. Was there anything that like maybe maybe even from your parents' side, because I know your parents were phenomenal during that window. Was there anything that really stuck with you about that situation?
Yeah, I think that they were there for me, right? Like they were going to give me anything that I needed. I mean, I remember we lived in Porter Ranch.
Hmm.
And my Dr. Mandelbaum, he was in Santa Monica on Wilshire Boulevard. And if anyone knows the valley and driving over the 405 freeway, that's not an easy commute. But my
Right.
dad and I would hop in the car for all the follow-ups, drive down there, 45 minutes, an hour and a half in the car. So I think just they were there. They were willing to do that. They're willing to take time out of their day, drive me to my appointments, my follow-ups, get me to my physical therapy appointments. So I think just offering support in whatever I needed in that moment, they gave me. So
Right. Awesome. What did you learn about yourself during this adversity for you
Yeah,
guys?
I think that kind of two ways I'd approach this question. One is I think what you learn about yourself, but also what you learn about the people around you. I think
Mhm.
yeah, about myself personally, I learned that there is so much more that you can give in moments where you feel like there's nothing left to give.
Mhm.
Um, and I think from the other perspective, you really learn who your support system is. I think when times are really, really hard, whatever the situation may be, you see who your friends are, you see who your family is, you see who your support system is, who's reaching out to you when you're going through a hard time, um, and that kind of shapes who you are in the future as well. So, um, you learn a lot about your orbit and who's around you.
It's a good way of putting it, for sure. For sure. How did your toughest moment shape who you are today?
I think that for me, um, just going through all that trial and error and just fighting for it and understanding that like I fought for this and I clawed my way to get back. Um, it makes me carry a chip on my shoulder just knowing that, man, you know what? I've done so much hard stuff already, man. Like I can continue to do it. Like, you know, and that's kind of my mentality now. I was like, man, you've been through the ringer and if it gets thrown at you, you're gonna be able to handle it and keep moving forward. I think another thing too, like I think that Eli touched on is just like the people around you. I mean, I kind of experienced that from having a pretty good senior year and getting a lot of accolades and recognition. Then tearing my UCL and getting to college, and not obviously having a freshman year, like the phones kind of went silent, and a lot of people left, a lot of people didn't really stay, and just kind of like we're kind of riding the Ethan Kodama wave, and then they kind of jumped off. So I learned a lot about like everyone around me too through the toughest moments, and it just makes me so much more thankful for those people around me that they stuck by my side during the tough times for me. So yeah.
I think it's really important, as a parent, and I know we'll touch on this later on, but I think surrounding, our sons with the right people, I think that becomes a really important part of it. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But so what do you wish adults understood about you, like that 15 to 17-year-old window? One of the things I talk to people about is that like sophomore year for most young men is like the worst. It's like the roughest year most boys have. And I think in this window, what do you wish people uh, understood about you?
Yeah, I think back to being that age and being a teenager and sophomore in high school or what have you, and I think you're going through a lot there, right? A lot of change.
Right.
I think you're growing, you're starting to kind of become a man, right? And I think sometimes you kind of fake it till you make it, right? I think teenagers, we kind of act like maybe, at that point in our life, we know it all, right? That we've got it under control. But the fact is, probably deep down, we don't. And
Right.
so I think as parents or as coaches, I think if we can provide support, maybe a framework,
Mhm.
standards, expectations, that kind of can help guide us at that age to maybe make the right decisions,
Right.
to act the right way, um, to know that it's okay that you don't feel normal or you don't know it all, and so I think to open up those lines of communication, I think are really important.
No, for sure. I tell people I had the greatest cheat codes in the world because, I spent so many years watching other people parent their kids as a coach, right? So I always felt like I had a greater insight to all the challenges and things. And I watched parents do it the right way. And I watched parents do it maybe not the way that I think would be positive, and you could see different outcomes for sure. And I think that's one of the things I will always be thankful for, at least in terms of being able to raise my own son and being able to be around so many great young men. So what helped emotionally during these injuries or setbacks? Was there something that really like stuck out to you that really helped you?
Um, Yeah, for me personally, I think obviously it goes back to everybody around me, right? My parents, my coaches, just understanding that for a long time I kind of believed that like I was my sport and I identified as what I did and how good I did and just like understanding like you add value regardless of how good you're playing and so just being able to have those people in my ear like telling me like it's gonna be okay, like we're gonna get back, and just continue to push me and like have my back and just more so not like over push me to the point where it's like, oh man, like this is too much people, in my circle. But yeah, just being able to like support me and help me understand that it's not the end of the world and we're gonna keep moving forward. So just being thankful for those people around me have definitely helped me. Emotionally during those injuries and setbacks, and also them showing me, other people that have done it. Unfortunately for me, for baseball, I feel like sometimes it's like a rite of passage to have Tommy Johns nowadays in baseball. So, seeing all these big leaguers and guys that have had Tommy John and um, them showing me constantly these guys coming back better, and man, this could be you, and just like that, this could be you, and giving them hope and the ability to to allow me to dream on certain things that sometimes people might not think are possible.
Great. What coaching behaviors made you feel supported?
You know, I think growing up, um, in I guess it's just who I was. I like as I mentioned, I was a late bloomer. I was, I think 5'1", dripping wet. As a freshman, like 100 pounds maybe. And I think for a lot of coaches, it's probably pretty easy to write people off. Just off of a judgment,
Mhm.
and so I think there was definitely a lot of moments throughout my youth where I appreciated like some tough love over no love, and so I think that growing up and having a bit of that older school mentality mixed with the new school mentality of coaching is I think is a really good combination for me. Knowing that people were going to keep me accountable, or coaches were going to keep me accountable for if they believed in me. I think if they were quiet and silent, it's probably more of a concern, in my opinion, than it is for someone to be making sure you stay on the straight and narrow. So I think that behaviors that are catered to making sure that you as an athlete, or you as a young man, or a boy, are doing the right things when things are hard, and doing the right things when things are easy. And those are I would say that the best coaches I've had have always done that for me.
Awesome. Awesome. So how were there ways, or how did coaches help shape your character through the years?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that there's a lot of coaches. For me personally, I think the first coach, I mean, obviously my dad, but second was a guy by the name of Jeremy Rodriguez. He just kind of showed a different outlook. I was looking at baseball so much through like performance and those kind of traits. Like, man, like I kind of walked into high school as not the biggest guy, I was a skinny kid, didn't necessarily have the pop like the other kids. But him just being able to tell me like, you know what, man, like it's gonna be okay, but mentally, like you got to be better than these guys, and so, you can control those things. You control how good mentally you show up to the yard. You can control that you think that you're gonna beat the other pitcher, no matter what the circumstances. So things like that, and then I've also had other guys where my high school coach, Michael Denning, was, we called him the drill sergeant back in the day, man. That guy didn't let anything fly. It was just all about the little things, the little things, the little things. Show up prepared, show up on time, be accountable. And so all of this stuff that I'm being told in college that sometimes guys aren't prepared to do is helped me in the moment. It sucks sometimes. He's on you all the time. It is just like the glove. He's just never, you know, off you. So, but that shaped me who I am today, being able to show up on time, show up prepared. He used to have this saying, if you're on time, you're late, and if you're early, you're on time. So just little things like that, and just carrying it out through the rest of my life, and understand that the little details matter in every little thing. So just making sure everything around the edges are all squared off, and make sure I'm doing everything that I can in my power to have the most success.
Great. Great. What traits of manhood did you learn through sports?
There's two that kind of stick out to me. I think one is, I think it probably started with sports, but bled into every facet of my life, which is, I think, just being true to yourself, and being and expressing who you are as a player um, as best as you can, without feeling shy, or feeling like embarrassed about who you are, and who how to express yourself. And it's, growing up as you're 12, 13, 14, 15, it's hard to do that sometimes, to
Hmm.
stay true to yourself. There's temptations, and there's trying to fit in, and like you're trying to figure out who you are as a young man. And I think that stems from feeling confident and being able to express yourself on the field.
Right.
Other piece of it, I think, of in terms of manhood, is playing for something bigger than yourself. Um, especially in soccer, where it is a team sport. There's 11 people on the field. There's you got subs coming on, you have coaches, you have parents coming out to watch you, driving to practice. Like there's so many different elements that allow you to play on that field every single week. And um, I think realizing that it's there's so much more to the game and about also just becoming a man than just you. It's a pivotal moment, I think, in the growing pains.
Right. No, for sure. Absolutely. What advice would you give coaches working with boys today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I think about that, coaching boys today, I think number one, it's you're the leader, right? So I think number one, you got to lead by example. You got to lead and show up the way that you would like the boys to show up. I think communication is huge. Communicate clearly to the boys. Set what expectations and what standards that you want to see out of them. I think also showing them that you're caring, that showing them empathy for what they're going through, showing them that you want the best for them. I think that goes a long way. And I think the no empty threats I think is a really big one, because I think then you get by, right? And so I think those things are really important for coaches today.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So one of the things, this idea of brotherhood and belonging, I think there's something to be said about it, all that as we go through our lives, and I think that I talk a lot about that. I think men and young men, especially, we forget that we need men time, that we need those windows of our lives that we need to be able to, grow together, and I think that becomes really an important part of what life brings, and I think that that's something that's important. How did teammates shape your identity and growth?
Massively. I mean, it wasn't just coaches, that you look up to, or the parents that are guiding you, or it's the it's your peers. And I can think of one person in particular, like Kyle Cernelia, is someone that I look up to this day, right? And he's in my grade, and I think that people like him who are they hold themselves accountable, they're respectful, they're kind, they're thoughtful. I think that all of those things outside of the field also carry a lot of weight when you're playing with each other, and realizing that you're playing for the person next to you, on your left, on your right, in front of you, behind you. So I think that it goes back to who do you surround yourself with, right? And if you're surrounding yourself with teammates and friends and family that are showing you the right way to lead by example, the values that you need to instill in yourself and help others, I think it goes a long way. And so, yeah, it's not just play or parents and coaches, but the people around you that you spend literally every single day with, in class, on the field, on the weekends. Like those are all, they're that's your orbit.
Right, right. I mean, that's why I've always been a really big believer in sports for my kids, just because of partly because of that, because it's the only time you get to really kind of control that micro environment as a parent sometimes. So what did brotherhood give you emotionally?
Yeah, I think, it's one word for me, I think, is strength. I think attending Crespi High School and playing soccer there, knowing that my teammates, my coaches, were there for me and would show up for me whenever I needed, I think that's huge. And I would show up for them whenever they need it. And I think that's even carried on. I'm now 44 years old, and I still have some of my best friends are my high school teammates. And I think to this day, I'll do anything for those guys, and I know that they'll show up and do anything for me. So I think that just gives me this strength, to know that no matter what's going on in my life, I have those guys to lean on, and if they need me to help them and pick them up, I'm there for them too.
Would that translate also for you guys through college as well, would you say? Like you still have those college guys, right? That,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think definitely I have a couple good
right,
college teammates that I consider brothers. But you
right,
know what? I think going to Crespi and it's such a small scale and spending 4 years with those guys in the classroom, on the soccer field,
Right.
outside of the school. I think that created a greater brotherhood for me, but definitely I do. I think, you know, in college, being in the locker room on the training field every day with these guys, you definitely create that bond too. But for me
Right.
personally, I think high school is much stronger.
I think, well, I don't disagree with you. I really do believe that there's something special about like when kids don't get the opportunity to play high school sports. I think there's something sometimes that they miss that they don't understand. Because when you play high school sports, the one advantage you have is you're with them all day long, literally in class in different elements and after school weekends, games, trout buses, the whole bit. Where in college, right, you get timeouts from each other a little bit more, and and you kind of have your own separate lives and you're in a little different stage. But so and I know for Ethan, you grew up in a locker room with a lot of these guys and have known these guys since you were a baby and you were born. Did growing up in that locker room kind of culture help, or do you think that it's challenged you, or were there positive negatives?
No, I mean, most of them were positive. I mean, I just think that, yeah, for me personally, just like it kind of made me grow up a little faster, just understand, just like, I mean, they're high school boys and some of the college guys you bring around and some of the pro guys that be around young. It definitely was like kind of eye-opening to see these things, and I think probably the first time I probably started like finding out about like girls and stuff like that. So I was pretty young at that age. But yeah, just being able to like understand like even now for me as an athlete is like, man, I understand what a good locker room looks like and what guys do to contribute to a great locker room and be a good teammate. And I've also seen like sides of guys where they obviously weren't great teammates and they were kind of a cancer to the locker room, you know. So I kind of seen both perspectives of it. Obviously, I think it challenged me because sometimes I go out and I play with these guys, and obviously I was probably 8, 9 years old, playing with high schoolers, and but I think it was good for me. It challenged me. Sometimes I'd be upset when I didn't win, but it's just, my dad would just be like, all right, well, maybe work harder next time. So it's just being able to challenge myself at a young age and play with these upper guys because when I got to college and you get to the pros, you're playing with these older guys all the time. So. It was kind of good for me because now, kind of when I step into the locker room, I kind of know a little bit of what to expect. And I just remember having so much fun growing up in a locker room like that. I just remember those guys were all like older brothers to me. And so when I see them now, they're like, man, I remember how small you were. So it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So some stuff life afterwards. How do lessons from sports show up in your adult life?
Yeah, I think failure and mistakes. Oh, sorry, Ethan, where are you going?
Um, yeah, it's all good though. Um, or no, no, you're all good. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I think lessons that we learn in sports. I think the big ones I think of is like we all are going to fail in sports. We're all going to make mistakes in sports, and I think that teaches you how to come back and how to be successful, and we learn from those mistakes. So I think that's one of the big things that in my job on a professional daily basis. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to handle the situation the wrong way, but you've got to learn from those moments, and then you're going to be a better professional, or you're going to be a better parent, or a better coach, or what have you.
Right. Yeah, I wish someone had given me a better manual to be a parent because I think that there's a lot of new challenges for sure, especially when they're first to get there. So, how do you handle adversity now compared to when you were a teenager in high school?
I think for me personally, I understand that, like I said before, it's like it's not the end of the world. There's things that are going to happen that are going to be very hard. But definitely lean into those challenges because those challenges is kind of what shapes you for later on in your life. There's going to be things that are going to happen sometimes outside of your control, and so being able to learn how to handle it and be like, it's okay, like I'm going to handle it. I'm going to move on from it and not like
Yeah.
kind of break down and be like, oh man, it's the end of the world. So just being able to understand that you've handled adversity in the past and you've never given up in yourself in the past, so why start now?
Right. Great. What would your younger self be proud of you today about?
Uh, Growing up, my dad would always say, that there's nothing cooler than being yourself. And that is, I think that looking back, I can with a lot of confidence say that the majority of my life I've felt like I am the coolest when I am myself, right? And I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I surround myself with people that make me feel that way.
Mhm.
I think that having the opportunity to lead teams from a sports perspective, having the opportunity to captain Crespi and then captain Monterey and play at a higher level, that's something that my younger self would feel very, very happy about, knowing how many hours were put into trying to perfect a craft. And obviously not perfecting, but obviously that's the goal.
Right.
And so I think that the opportunities and experiences that I've had today, I would say that my younger self has been proud, would be proud of knowing.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Jeff, how does your experience with injury help you work with your patients today?
Yeah, I mean, as a physical therapist and having gone through the two ACL reconstructions back in high school, and obviously most recently, about 7.5 months ago, I ruptured an Achilles and had surgery on that. And I've been dealing with that. So I think going through all these injuries and going through the rehabs is number one. I'm empathetic. Um,
Mhm.
I understand what they're feeling. I understand what they're going through, and I can relate to them because I've been there. And that allows me to give, to let them know that it's going to be okay and they're going to reach their goal, whatever that is. Because when you're going through an injury and in a early rehab process, it's going to be painful, and you're going to have doubts whether you're going to get back to 100% or you're going to get back to your sport or your recreational activity or even work, right? Are you going to be able to do what you need to do in the home? So having gone through it all myself, I think I can relate to them and I can give them my own personal experiences, and hopefully that helps them process it and get through it and get where they want to be.
Right. Awesome. Eli, how do lessons from soccer influence your professional career today?
Um, I think knowing that there's always another opportunity to get better, I think is a big one for me. You know,
Mhm.
I think life is just a bunch of moments, right? And same with the soccer field, how there's just a bunch of moments that you have the opportunity to make a decision on. And I think that from being a part of a team at a young age, and that carries over into your professional career of how to navigate different personalities, different work ethics, different priorities for people, especially in a virtual world. I know that's even more challenging working across the country, and so I think that soccer, but it just also sports in general, just really challenges you and forces you to be able to hone working with people in a professional manner, in a polite and kind manner as well. And but I think the other piece of it is also accountability. Um,
Mhm.
when you start to move into the professional world, do your job, you're probably going to get fired, right? And so
Right.
it's similar to soccer and sports in general. If you're not held account, if you need to be held accountable for the work that you're responsible for doing, and if you're not going to do it, then there's obviously repercussions to it. So learning that early has really it's been embedded into my professional career now.
Awesome. Ethan, what does resilience mean to you now after going through all that stuff?
Um, it just gives me the confidence to know that through the rest of my life, whether that's in baseball, whether that's in whatever I go into after baseball, whether it's as, hopefully a father one day or husband, one of those things one day, that I know that I can be able to handle whatever is being thrown at me and continue to keep moving forward and help those around me. So, like I said before, it's not the end of the world. It's challenges, it's life, it's going to be ups and downs, but it's kind of how you handle those ups and downs, and are you able to kind of keep the boat afloat and keep on pushing. So just being able to handle adversity um, through sports has been great for me.
Great. Great. So we're going to close up with just a couple things here. And so as a parent, I know you, the only one who's a parent besides myself is Jeff. So, what do parents need to know in this day and age? I know, Jeff, you have a son who's entering high school in this day and age, and so you're in that loop and so forth. Is there any advice you'd give to the parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think I look at, my son's 13 years old, and close to entering high school. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have right now is this kind of digital electronic era, and just the amount of information that's out there that could be um, influencing them, could be setting unrealistic expectations on who they are and how they should be. And I think we need to be present. I know that's what I try and do, is I try to be present every day and be
Hmm.
there for him and let him know that, if he's got questions or concerns, or if he's feeling anxious, or if he's feeling depressed or what have you, that I'm there, and I'm here to listen, and I'm here to help. Um, and I'm present, and I think that's really huge this day and age, because there's just this kind of wealth of information out there that they have access to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, people ask me all the time. I mean, I'm very, very blessed, with the kids that I have and they've been able to participate in sports all the way into college. And the one thing I do tell parents is that with all this information, all this stuff going on, you got to trust your gut and you really have to try to protect the game as best as you can. And as a coach, you want to protect the game. I think being able to communicate with with your players and people around you is critical. And as a parent, being there is incredibly important. Just absolutely just being there. You don't even have to say nothing, but just the abilities to be there is important. So, just a few things to close up. Some of the practical coaching takeaways. We hope as we go forward, we talk about like some do's, right? Cool down, relax. Don't. Most kids know when they played bad. Most teams do. At a certain point. So I think being able to let ourselves calm down is important. I think being clear and being consistent with language and the things that you're promoting is important. I think this ability to follow through is key. I think we've already heard that as well. I think one of the things that's really difficult for coaches, is the abilities to continually check in on these kids. I think on the boys side of things, they're able to mask a lot of things much more than we realize. That sometimes things are going on, and as a coach, we have no idea if we don't check in and ask and specifically ask. And I think that becomes important. I think being able to praise growth as they grow and be more aware of that than we are even of what scores are, winning and losing, and all that other kind of stuff. I think the biggest things to be mindful of is the empty threats. I know, Jeff, you had talked about it. We had talked about this idea of, humiliating kids is just not the way to go, or anybody at this point. I think we got to be mindful to not overreact as well, because I think how we act as leaders will then dictate how our players will react, or even our kids, right? If we go too much on one versus another, right? And again, it's such an important element to tie someone's worth to their performance, and not necessarily to wins or losses, but what they've contributed, and it could be in a lot of different ways. And I think that becomes really important, which is good. Do you guys have anything else to add, or any other pieces of advice that you guys would like to add? Okay, outstanding. I am so proud of these guys. I got to tell you, between Jeff, Eli, and obviously Ethan as well. But I'm really very proud of where they've been, where they are, and they're the shining examples of what I'd always hoped my son would become. And I think I'd like to think that he's on his way there to kind of follow in your guys' footsteps. So I personally want to thank you guys for your time and for what you've been able to do and impart your knowledge with all of us here as well. And so we're looking forward to even more as we go forward. And with that being said, we'll say thank you very much, and we hope you enjoyed the session.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.